No problem.
It's fabulous. You're an EIR with EMC Ventures.
Correct.
And I wondered what you like to invest in, what sweet spot or things that you're really interested in.
Yeah, well, it's broad.
Okay.
Actually, it's pretty specific. EMC, as you know, is a pretty large organization, mostly focused on storage. However, our thesis for investment spans what we consider next generation data center. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's very keen to EMC. We also invest in big data, large data, from an application and infrastructure perspective. And then ecosystem investments around assets that EMC owns. For example, Greenplum is a company that EMC acquired about 1.5 years ago. So we'll make investments in businesses that are building on top of Greenplum technology. Okay. So those are kind of the 3 areas that I specifically am looking at. I tend to lean more toward the big data than the other 2.
Right. Okay. And because your businesses in the past have been related to that, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. You might know this company called Autonomy. Being from the UK, I'm assuming. Mm-hmm. Right? I had a startup that we sold into Autonomy. So Autonomy is kind of the leader in large-scale meaning from unstructured information.
Right. And so obviously, does EMC invest in Europe at all, in European startups or any startups anywhere else in the world apart from the US?
Absolutely. We, opportunity can come from anywhere.
Right.
And so we do have managing directors here in the US, mm-hmm. and we cover Europe from Israel.
Right.
So we do actually have an investment professional in Israel who helps us find deals, not just in Israel, but also in continental and the UK as well.
Right, that's fabulous, because it's a little bit tougher over there.
Yeah, I would
raise venture.
We actually found, which I can't really talk about, but we actually found 2 very, very good companies coming out of the UK recently.
That's really good.
Which was sourced from our friend in Israel. So
that's really good. Now I really want to hear what it's like to be an EIR, because I think it'd be a fabulous position. Tell me about it. Like, how much fun do you have?
It is fun.
Yeah.
I will say. What attracted me to EMC and what I like about being an EIR specifically at EMC is there are a lot of toys to play with.
Oh,
there are a lot of data assets, software assets, hardware assets, mm-hmm. And a lot of very smart people, obviously, that have great go-to-markets in verticals. So you have the ability to, pick the brain of somebody who's been selling into a healthcare vertical for 15 years, wow. large-scale storage systems, and say, what do you think about this idea? And then you're able to take assets inside of EMC, software assets and hardware assets, and say, if we put this together in this kind of way, does that Lego actually look like an X-Wing fighter, or does it look like just a pile of Legos? So it's actually pretty fun.
Yeah,
I'm having a great time doing it.
And would you tease out a little bit the role of an EIR, just for possibly some viewers that may not fully understand that, including myself?
Yeah, sure. It actually means different things to different people, and it is kind of fund specific. EIR can be executive in residence or entrepreneur in residence. It's essentially very similar. Again, it depends on the fund itself, right? Yes. So the fund will be able to determine it. The general consensus is an EIR is basically brought in by a fund to evaluate new business opportunities and due diligence on deals that the fund is currently looking at, survey a market, present that information back to the fund, and give them insight into a market that they may not have had insight into before, and at times generate an actual thesis around investment in that market.
Okay.
And the function of an EIR is not to be employed very long by that fund, because they want you out after you've been doing it for a bit, 3, 4, 6 months, to actually go start something. And traditionally, your first round of funding will come from the fund from which you've worked.
Oh, that's really educated me. And I know some EIRs, say like Charlie O'Donnell in Union Square Ventures, he's been there for years.
Well, yeah, like I said, it just depends on the fund itself.
Okay.
And sometimes, also, an EIR can, when people say executive in residence at certain funds, they really mean executive in residence. Literally, you're on staff to go get deployed into portfolio companies and actually help them grow if they're stuck in an area, give advice to the CEO, those kinds of things. So you truly are an executive that gets deployed. You know, in private equity, they call it an operating partner.
Interesting.
In venture, they call it executive in residence.
That's great. Well, let's hope that maybe more women might get on board. And tell me, does EMC invest in any female startups that you know
Again, I cannot specifically say the name of the startup, but I would say that probably one of the best portfolio companies in EMC's portfolio is a woman-run startup.
Woohoo!
Yes.
That's so fabulous.
Yep.
There's just got to be more of us, I think. It's not the quality, it's the quantity, I think.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Yep.
Thank you so much for your time today. Delightful meeting you, and thank you so much for the education.
Yeah, no problem. Great meeting you.
Okay.